Hi, it's Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're taking a look at the Gamemax Infinity. This is one of your typical cases where they go all out trying to give you as much ventilation as possible, but also giving you a really nice look with that dual tempered glass design. On today's video we're going to go through, do a bit of a teardown, see what it's all about, look at the pros and the cons, talk about pricing, etc., and see if it's going to be suitable for your next build. So let's get straight into it. Now, first of all, pricing. This at the moment in the UK is retailing for just under £60, depending where you're shopping. There are a few places which are selling for a little bit more, which is unfortunate, but we will put some affiliated links in the video description so you can shop around and see which prices suit you best. This also comes in two versions. There is a black version and also a white version. And also, depending where you're shopping, you may find it bundled with other things, such as a Gamemax controller hub for addressable RGB, and a splattering of RGB fans, either a 3-pack, 6-pack, etc, etc. So again, do check out those links for more information. So let's dive straight in and take a look and see what it's all about. So we'll do a quick rotation, see all the sides, and then we'll have a closer look inside to see what is going on. So starting off with the side panel, as you can see here, so we've got a full-size tempered glass panel. There's a nice little black edging around the outside edges, so when you're actually physically putting it onto the case, if you get any fingerprints behind it, they are covered up by that black. There's also a film on here, which obviously you can remove to make it look a little bit shinier once you've finished your build. All in all, nice and open, like that a lot. Moving around to the front section, so again, another sheet of tempered glass here, same deal. Bit of protection on there for when you're building, and all of the glass is completely transparent. There's no tint on this whatsoever. So moving to the back side, this section here is actually for mounting hard drives, SSDs, etc. There's two screws there and a couple of screws on the other side for removing the actual cage. We'll take a closer look at that shortly. Above that, you've got a mounting area for a PSU. In terms of depth for PSU, basically you can put any size power supply you want, even if it's one from 10-15 years ago. It's absolutely huge. You can put it in there, although they do suggest up to 200mm is pretty much the max, but technically you can go larger. Moving around to the back of the case, so as you can see, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. This is definitely an airflow focused case, despite the fact of having two sheets of tempered glass. This back panel is pretty much as open as you could possibly wish for, so you're going to have great ventilation, so your power supply is going to be pulling in fresh air from this section here, and your drives, if mounted, will be able to pull in air from here. This section here, pretty much wide open, so if you are mounting an AIO or fans there to exhaust or intake, then it's going to grab plenty of air or be able to exhaust plenty of air. On the top of the case, the ventilation continues in very similar format, so this is actually our filter on the top, removable with two thumb screws, so we'll do that shortly. While we're up here, let's take a quick look at the I/O. So in terms of I/O, we've got a solid power button, nicely done in brushed aluminum. You've also got two jacks there, one for headset and one for a microphone. Unfortunately, they're not actually marked up, so you might have a little bit of guesswork there, but we'll see if we can look into that a little bit later on. You also got a USB Type-C port and also a USB Type-A, both of those USB 3.0. They are going to be limited to 5 gigabit per second. The USB Type-C doesn't have a USB Type-C termination on the plug, which we'll take a look at later, so it is slightly limited on speeds, but still we'll be able to take USB Type-C devices. Next, we'll take a look at the bottom section. So in the bottom section, we've got a full-length filter. Unfortunately, it is one of those metal mesh ones. I'm not a great fan of these, but they do their job. So to remove it, just flex it a little bit and you can remove it. There are guide channels there to get it back in. Also, you can mount at the bottom here 3 120mm fans or potentially a 360mm AIA radiator. Possibly the worst possible place you could mount one, but if you so wanted to, you definitely can do. Now we're going to move back round to the rear section, and for good reason, because to actually take this apart, you do have to begin with the top. So this top section must come off first of all. The side panels are locked into place. So two thumb screws, you can just loosen those off. They aren't captive, so watch you don't drop them. And then you can slide this back panel off and remove it. So this effectively is your filtration. You don't mount fans or any other hardware to this. This is purely a top section and is for ventilation, and is actually pretty darn solid. So this is all completely open, and as you can see, you can mount 3 120mm fans there or a 360mm AIO should you wish to. Alternatively, just you can leave it completely empty, or a couple of fans, one fan, whatever you want to do, but the maximum you can fit in here is 3 120mm fans and a 360mm AIO. So now we've got the top section off, we can actually remove the rest of the panel. So these are locked in place, so you just slide them upwards and they are held in on this rail system. There's two little dots top and bottom, so that holds it on nicely. And there's actually foam gaskets around the outside edge as well to make sure it doesn't rattle or vibrate. And the same goes for the front section, so to remove it, just push it upwards and it slides out again on that rail system. Foam gaskets down around the side to, again, prevent any vibrations. So now we can see completely inside and there is an absolute ton of room to work with. We'll go through some of the key features. So when it comes to cooling potential, you can install up to 10 120mm fans. So that comprises of 3 in this side section, 3 on the bottom section, 3 in the top, and also 1 on the rear as well. So up to 10 fans potentially. When it comes to radiator placement, probably I would say top is going to be beneficial in terms of getting that hot air straight out the top of the case. The sides there, again, you can do whatever you want. You can put a 360mm rad in there should you wish to. I think it's also nice as well, they've actually given some extra thought, so you can put 140mm fans in here, only 2 of them, 3 physically won't fit, but there is an option, so if you do want to put a 280mm rad in there, or 2 140mm fans, you can do, although I think a 360 or 3 120mm fans would look much nicer. Lots of room on the bottom for cable management, so the fans are going to be slightly offset and away from this back section. You've also got 2 pass-throughs, so one here, this is going to be for your front panel I/O and possibly USB. And over here, possibly again USB and or HD audio, which will pass through nicely and kind of match up here. All the pillars are pre-installed, so you've got 9 pre-installed pillars in here for a ATX format. Potentially you could put a extended ATX board in here, but it will obviously obstruct this slightly, or potentially if you want to a micro ATX, they do include additional pillars should you wish to do that. On the back there, we've got our captive PCI Express blanking plates. Not a great fan of those, if I'm entirely honest. Moving around towards the top, so you can see you've got pass-throughs at the top here in 2 pretty decent places. So if you are putting a radiator up here with addressable RGB, etc., plenty of options to pass through your cabling, all that kind of good stuff. On the side section, just here, we've got some rubber grommets pass-throughs, so again for ATX or for possibly graphics card power, that sort of thing. All that nice and easy to do. It is a very sharp angle, so obviously do make sure that cables, when they come through, are long enough to fit into your motherboard. Actually could be a really good opportunity to dig out some cable extensions to give it a really nice look. So now let's take a look in the back. So 2 thumb screws, none of these are captive, so they will fall out, so do be careful. Pretty easy to remove, and the panel just slides backwards. And is in there pretty well. Again, pretty heavyweight, very similar to the top section, and also there is some locating plastic or nylon washers there just to make sure that it fits snugly against the case. With that out of the way, you can see there's an absolute ton of room to work with in here. So again, nice clear section here, so basically no restrictions whatsoever for the AIO or your fans, either in this side motherboard section or in the top section. On the bottom is a little bit more restricted, so potentially not quite so good for intake. But definitely it's very, very open indeed. You've also got this mounting bracket here. So this is for storing hard drives or SSDs. You can put 3 2.5-inch drives on here, or 2 3.5-inch drives. It's also removable, so 4 screws, 2 there, and 2 on the back, as we showed a little bit earlier. And then that opens this whole section right up. At the top, you can see we've got some pass-throughs as well, which we saw on the other side. So again, for cable management and routing, gonna have no problems there whatsoever. The only thing that's slightly strikes me as being a little bit odd on this design is actually the fact that the power supply is in this section here, a little bit higher up. The problem with that being is if you're someone who kind of tinkers with your system quite a lot and you need access to the backplate from your motherboard, it is going to mean that this section here is going to be kind of blocked off. So if you do want to change your CPU cooler or your AIO and you need access to the rear of the motherboard, potentially it means undoing the 4 screws here and just kind of pulling your power supply out of the way. Not the end of the world, but certainly I think it would have made possibly a little bit more sense to reverse that situation. So have your hard drives mounted up here, power supply down towards the bottom. Overall, I don't think it's a huge thing, and the reality is most people, once they've done their build, they kind of leave it as it is for a matter of months or years until they actually go in and start tweaking things. So for most of the users of this case, I think it's going to be absolutely fine. Next, we can take a look at the front I/O connectivity. So really nice long cables. So for cable management, it's going to be an absolute breeze. Got the usual suspects here. So you've got your HD audio connection. All of these are nicely blacked out as well. No ketchup and mustard on them. You've also got your front panel connections. A little bit limited on this. So you don't have a reset switch. So if you are potentially looking at using some sort of addressable RGB controller which relies on a reset switch, that is a little bit unfortunate. But power button, power LED and hard drive LED, those are there. And when it comes to the USB connectivity, there is a single USB 3.0 header, so that plugs straight into your motherboard and then splits into two cables, one of which goes to that USB Type-C and one goes into the USB Type-A. This actually is pretty decent because this gives you the flexibility. If you've got a slightly older motherboard that doesn't have a dedicated USB Type-C header on it, this is going to be great. So you're still going to have that USB Type-C front panel connectivity and the access to be able to use it, but you don't have to have a rather expensive motherboard in order to connect it up. So yeah, that's pretty cool. You are going to be limited to 5 gigabit per second, which is the max you can get through the Type-A connections, but I think it's absolutely fine. So I think that is pretty much it. Overall, I'm very pleased with this. There's a few things which I feel they could have done better. Like I said, the power supply placement, possibly, if you're someone who fiddles around with your PC quite a lot. The fold out PCI Express blanking plates, I think in 2023 is a little bit of a push, but certainly they're easy to replace and rectify. So if you do need some additional covers, you can pick them up for less than a couple of pounds on eBay or Amazon, etc. So yeah, not the end of the world, but would have been nice to have seen. But yeah, overall I think this is a fantastic design. It comes in at a great price. If you look at other competitors on the market with similar sort of designs, you've obviously got things like the Lian Li 011 Dynamic, which is kind of where this gets a lot of its ideas from, which is considerably more expensive, albeit a slightly more flexible and arguably a higher quality case. And you've also got things like the Techwear VXR, which we reviewed ages ago, which is kind of identical, although it doesn't have quite the same flexibility in terms of mounting hardware. Something which I should mention as well is when it comes to air cooling, if you are buying this and you are going down the air cooling route, which I know a lot of you will do because a lot of you are scared by AIOs and the fact that they can break and all that kind of stuff, which obviously they do. When it comes to CPU height clearance, this one's actually got some really decent clearance, so 170 millimeters, which is a little bit more than some of the others we've seen of a similar design, so it does give you that flexibility for using larger coolers such as the Noctua D15, etc. That's going to fit in there no problems at all. When it comes to graphics cards, 4090s, stuff like that's going to be no problem at all. You have got somewhere in the region of about 385mm of room here, although they do state on the box kind of realistically 360 is pretty much where you want to be. The nice offset here as well, you're not going to have any problems, so this is actually recessed quite a bit. So there's somewhere in the region of about 65 to 70 millimeters between the back here and the front, so your motherboard is going to come out a little bit further. So if you are putting a rather hefty radiator, a rather deep one, or even some of the new modern deeper fans, which are like 30mm, you can have no issues there whatsoever with that obstructing your graphics card. So yeah, that's all very good. Yeah, overall I think it's a great case, great price. I love this form factor, I really do. I think it is combining the best of all the worlds really. You can hide all the crap in the back and show off all your nice stuff in the front, which is I guess what this sort of PC case is all about. But what I think about it isn't important, what you think about it is. So sound off in the comment section, let me know what you think about this one. And if you know of any other cases similar that are a better price, around about £60 here in the UK, please do let me know. Always interested to hear your thoughts on those kinds of things. And I think £60 for this is pretty well justified. It's not in that kind of ultra budget category. I think this is in the more mid-range category. And yeah, it's a very worthwhile entry. And of course, if you don't like it in black, there is also a white version available as well. And I believe there is also a micro ATX version of this coming out very shortly. So hopefully we'll get around to seeing that when that arrives. So I think that's going to wrap things up. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To. And hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.